Let's get to the real news. Okay, the most honest, most trusted source in news, Fox News, baby. Obama secretly running Kamala's campaign, says former speaker. Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about, baby. None of this fake no more. We've been watching too much libtard media, brother. It's time to watch the most trusted source in news, Fox News. All right? Uncompromising, truth-telling. Brian killed myself.
Joe Biden, and you think he's going to be the candidate.
Right.
And you're an aide working on his staff or his campaign, and then all of a sudden things change and they push up Kamala Harris.
Right.
What happens to you?
Especially because they have tensions between the staffs. Because she couldn't keep anybody. 87% of those staffers have resigned from day one. And then you have the Biden people who think, I don't even know how to work with her. And they don't work with her. And now all of a sudden, they get elevated.
And they used to disparage her.
Right. And Jen O'Malley, for example, Jen O'Malley Dillon, the former Biden White House official, talked to her over the weekend, said, I need to know my role.
Right.
They're all nervous about David Plouffe coming in from the Obama years.
Well, they should be nervous because he's great at his job. Also, you got Stephanie Cutter as well. So David Plouffe apparently is in control of the math. How did they get to 270? Great at his job. Stephanie Cutter is now over messaging, all the communication strategy. The one thing I find troubling, though, okay, you got David Plouffe and Stephanie Cutter. They had a great candidate. They had Barack Obama, someone that was on. This is a plan that was 5 years in the making to get him to the presidency. Now they have Kamala Harris, who they can't put on the road to actually talk with voters on a day-to-day basis. Sure, they can keep her on the prompter, but she's not going to have any of those breakout moments. Now, apparently the tension is because they said that David Plouffe is over the math, but he's really running the campaign.
Right.
And Jen O'Malley Dillon wants her role to be solidified as the campaign manager.
Because when you think about it, the Biden team, which a lot of it has morphed into the Harris team with the re-election in Wilmington. And why is it in Wilmington now? Because she's not from Wilmington. They're the people who thought that in the run-up to the election, they would put Joe Biden at union halls with 80 people.
Right.
Suddenly, they've got big events where there are in excess of 10,000 people, and it's completely different. And one of the other things, according to this Politico article that talks a little bit about the tension between the Harris team and the campaign, is the fact that apparently there are some people on one of the teams that is badmouthed the current vice president who's running for president, and they don't like that person.
Right.
And
you can see
they're a big part of the team.
Here's the headline of the Politico article. Kamala Harris, United Democrats. Her campaign still has fractures. It talks about how Biden's aides, as you're saying, Steve, in the past have known for their disparaging comments about Kamala Harris. It talks about the daunting task to try to integrate two different political
Drama. Dude, that jersey looks like a Besiktas shirt. Dude, that's so funny. My dad just saw me wearing the jersey and was like, is that a Besiktas jersey or a Juventus jersey? In his mind, he's like, he did not consider that this would be like a Australian Football League jersey at all. Boo, Collingwood. Yeah, I know.
It talks about David Plouffe coming in, and Kevin McCarthy was interviewed, and he said, because David Plouffe worked for Obama, helped get him elected, he said, Obama's really running the show here. Listen.
Watching the campaign now, some of Obama's, David Plouffe and others, are now working on the campaign. You're getting the Obamas shifting from running the White House to now running this campaign. This is the most liberal ticket in the history of American politics. We do not want to put San Francisco and Minnesota across this country.
And Nancy Pelosi may have...
Wait, you don't want Minnesota across the country? Dog, Minnesota is in the middle of the country. It's Middle-soda. Like, sure, you could say that about San Francisco or whatever, but it is quite ironic. Like, it's hilarious to be like, yeah, the radical beacon of Minnesota. Like, that's not going to translate. Absolutely no one is going to be like, yeah, man, sure is radical over there in Minnesota. Don't get me started on San Francisco. I'm just saying, like, San Francisco is right-wing as on so many goddamn issues, especially in terms of housing, dealing with homeless people, dare I say even crime. But what I'm talking about is how people think about San Francisco versus how people think about Minnesota. Okay? Most people do not think of the Twin Cities or Minneapolis or Minnesota as like a liberal haven. Okay? That's not something that is going to be a solid narrative that you can launch in 80 days and successfully bring across. Minnesota has a lot of liberal cities in the same way that Texas has a lot of liberal cities. Like, what are we talking about?
Taking Joe Biden out. But remember who was the Speaker of the House during President Barack Obama's presidency? It was Nancy Pelosi. They were very extremely close. Apparently, some of the reporting that we saw during the Sundays and show is that they did not, President Obama, Nancy Pelosi, as well as some of the leadership, did not anticipate Joe Biden selecting Kamala to be the candidate. They were expecting an open primary process, and after that second statement, he named them, put them all in the tough
So I think he's
position.
saying to Nancy Pelosi, there's two people with a lot of experience. Number one, I know you ousted me, but
That's right.
I'm going to pick who's next. I
That's
know you don't like
exactly
her
right.
because we saw you on television on CNN when asked, should she be the running mate for Joe Biden? He goes, he thinks so. Remember?
Yeah.
He thinks so. And how about this? Imagine if you're Julie Chavez Rodriguez and you're running Joe Biden's campaign, which got a big elevation, right? And all of a sudden you find out now you're in charge of the Sun Belt states.
Well,
really?
and
I thought I was
Hispanic
leading.
outreach.
Hispanic
I,
outreach,
yeah, I thought I was the one getting to 270. Now David Plouffe comes off the bench, leaves Kellyanne Conway's podcast, and now runs things. So I hope they work it out because she has a history of not being able to work out anything with her staff. Remember, a terrible campaign staff, a terrible vice presidential staff, who I'm not saying they're bad individually, but collectively there was no leadership, and they end up tearing each other's eyes out.
I think they're doing whatever it takes to win. We have 30 plus.
Yeah. No, literally. Yeah. No, that's it. Kamala Harris is a sheet of white paper. Okay? Just write whatever policy that will win, and she will push for it. That's their job at a time when a generic Democrat was outcompeting Biden by like 20 points. That is the person. They lucked into a good thing.
State 35 days until early voting. Is that right? 34
Something
days?
like that. Tick, tick, tick.
Well, I just hope the Republicans take the same strategy and do whatever it takes to win. All the petty going back and forth with old opponents, George and all, none of that matters.
Right.
It's about who's going to win, and Kamala Harris.
What does this tell you? This tells you that she needs all the help she can get. Donald Trump's running his own show, but they can't trust Kamala Harris to run her own show. They have to tell her what to do and bring in Obama's people.
Yeah, to your point, one of the things the Republicans...
Yeah, she has no people. What do you mean? She does not have any people. That's not a thing that she has. She's never had people.
need to do is they need a solid ground game. The Democrats for decades have had a great get out the vote on election day.
It was started by Plouffe.
Right, exactly. Well, even before that, going back decades, they were really good. Machine politics. The Republicans right now don't have that. They're kind of farming it out to other people. But behind the scenes, also part of Politico Playbook, it's interesting. Apparently Kamala Harris is getting ready to debate Donald Trump. You know who the debate partner is that they have selected? It is Hillary Clinton's former aide, that Philippe Reines is the guy who's going to actually be playing
like
Donald Trump. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
and one of the things they will be doing is they will be trying to get her to pivot. And she's been pivoting on a lot of stuff.
Flip-flopping.
Flip-flopping, another polite way to put it in politics.
Changing her mind, totally.
Just like Biden did on day one. Remember all those executive orders, shutting down the wall, shutting down the pipeline?
But he did tell us he was...
Her staff is dog. Now she has her brother-in-law, Tony West, advising her, who is a corporate shill. He really is bad. Yeah, I'm worried about that, for sure. These are like the more boring aspects of a campaign that Democrats will inevitably lean on like their worst instincts on, because it's the type of shit that most people don't pay attention to. When you say Kamala doesn't have any people, do you mean members of the cabinet? No, I'm talking about her team. Like in the Democratic Party, there's fissures. Joe Biden, because of his 50 plus years in Congress, has his own people, but mostly would lean into, we're talking about staffers, would either lean on Obama era staffers with like Obama minded folks. It's basically a Clinton camp and an Obama camp in the Democratic Party in the most reductive terms. Okay. And then you have your own staffers. Overall, Kamala has leaned on a lot of Obama staffers to fill the roles.
Well, he told us he was going to be moderate, though. He told us he was going to be moderate.
Last week, we talked about how she was using the big airplane at big events a la Donald Trump, and now she's taken something that is very near and dear to people who live on tips. Watch the comparison. Seem familiar?
Raise the minimum wage and eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
When I get to office, we are going to not charge taxes on tips. There will be no taxes on tips. No taxes on tips. It's called no tax on tips. No tax.
I think the easiest thing to do in this situation is literally package this up by saying Donald Trump is silly. He wants corporations to get off scot-free without paying their employees more. That's why I'm not just advocating for no taxes on tips. I'm advocating for no taxes on tips and an elimination of sub-minimum wage, something like that.
I'm also doing no tax on tips. No tax on tips.
So the question is, does she even know what the policy is when it comes to no tax on tips? Where did it come from?
I
still don't think it's a good idea, but that's besides the point. I don't think it's a good idea. It's popular because, I hate to say this, but a lot of people are stupid, okay? Americans are so brain broken that they just like only run on tax cuts, and they can never imagine a world where tax hikes can happen to those who deserve to get tax hikes, not the servers, obviously, but like the wealthy and the corporations. But because they're so brain broken on tax cuts that it's like once that conversation gets started, it's impossible to shake them from that position that it's a good idea.
Sure.
Who does it all encompass in it? Also, if you remember, it's not just the tips policy. The Democrats, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, have already said they want to roll back the Trump tax cuts that are set to expire. What's your position on that? Are you going to be in support of a tax increase on most of Americans that got a tax cut under that bill? I mean, there's been no pushback or curiosity.
Why now? Why now?
Yeah.
She's been in office for 3.5 years as the vice president.
Or why not do it now? As the vice president, you have some influence. You can. Apparently, you have this weekly meeting with the president of the United States. Why haven't y'all proposed that being into law right now?
They didn't even think about it until they heard
That's
Donald
exactly
Trump
right.
say it first.
And that's going to be the interesting part is, she's doing a 180 on all the border stuff. Now she's doing, hey, no tax on tips. I wonder how long until she adopts another very popular suggestion that Donald Trump made a week or two ago, and that is no tax on Social Security, because that is a good way to get older people over 65 living on Social Security to vote for you.
Well, at one point, the voters have to say, now you're insulting me. Now, listen, if
People
you
want
wanted
free
to,
stuff.
you are running on Donald Trump's plans.
Right.
So most of the stuff that Donald Trump's running on in terms of keeping the tax rate in place, in terms of having a strong border, in terms of protecting strength on foreign policy, are 60% approval. Trump aside, these are issues that 6 out of every 10 Americans say I fully support. So instead of running on what she's done and what she wanted to do in 2020 as she got the nomination, she's running as Donald Trump. So the American people have to say at one point, it's a little insulting.
Yeah.
You know, I don't pretend as if we don't have a television, we're not online, we're not on social media, and understand where this came from.
The problem is we eat, breathe, and sleep this.
That's true.
We're covering this constantly, so we know that he said it first. But yesterday I was at a restaurant, and the waitress, we were talking about no tax on tips. How do you feel about it? She said, both candidates are saying that. She had no clue.
There you go.
Exactly.
I mean, she's one speech away from saying MAGA. I mean, she's almost.
No, she's going to say build a wall.
I mean, she's that close from doing it.
She has said build a wall. What do you think the right-wing border bill is? I'm losing my mind. Also, that waitress isn't wrong. Like, they both have, at this point, said no tax on tips. The wall thing is so stupid. Democrats ran on how racist it was because it was. It objectively didn't solve any of the problems that it claimed to solve for years, and then they literally are communicating a bill. They're running with a bill that literally features finishing the border wall in it. You're gonna hear a lot more of this from Fox News of them being like, wow, they keep stealing Trump's policies. It's also kind of stupid because they should just simply say, who do you trust more to actually build the wall? The guy who did build the wall, or the Democrats who called it racist and only now recognize how scary it is that immigrants are doing mass rapes and murders. That's what I would say if I was a Republican strategist. I'd be like, over and over again, I'd be like, these idiot Democrats think you're stupid. These Democrats think you're dumb. They think that you're dumb and you don't realize that like the Republican Party has been ringing the alarm bells on immigration for years, and now Democrats are even coming to terms with that. Who do you trust more to deal with immigration? The border czar who let all the undocumented migrants into the country so they could do like fentanyl rapes, or the guy who correctly said Mexicans are rapists and stopped them from coming in?
Again, the campaign strategy is to isolate her. And judging by what's happened so far, there hasn't been any pushback. She has gotten a bump as a result from keeping her away from the American people. And if you don't think it won't work, look back in 2020. They did the same thing with Joe Biden, and it worked.
Look at her voting record. If you really want to know what she thinks, how she feels, what she believes, look at her voting record. This truly is the most progressive ticket we've ever had in our country.
She won an award. I don't know if they gave out plaques, but she was in 2019 the most liberal senator, most progressive senator in the Senate.
Track.
And Bernie Sanders was second.
Yeah.
Do they give a? Is there a ceremony for that?
Well,
I'm not sure.
There's no plaque. I think she got a gift card.
Oh, she got a gift card to what? Starbucks?
Well, something like that. Well, but
oh God, they're so lame. God, I could be so much better at being a racist Republican commentator / analyst. Like, it just makes me mad. They got no riz. They got no bitches. One of them's last name is literally, I want to kill myself. He's Mr. Brian Kill Me. They suck.
to your point about we haven't heard from her in a professional interview segment setting like that, it's because
that's Beltway stuff, Steve. That's just Beltway stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and her comms team said they're not going to do it because you know what? It's not going to help them with swing staters and swing voters and stuff like that. But when you look at the new Siena New York Times poll, which came out over the weekend, suddenly it's within the margin of error, but she is slightly ahead in 3 of the states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, which is a 180 from where Joe Biden was. There are some other studies out there, other polls out there that show Donald Trump is ahead. The point is, it's really close, and she has suddenly made it competitive. And is she going to put herself out there to be interviewed by people like Peter Doocy or anybody else?
Yeah, according to
like there's anybody else besides Peter Doocy?
Well,
come on, Steve, let's be honest.
At our house,
right?
I'd go for either one of them.
So real quickly, according to the RCP average, Donald Trump is winning in.
RCP average, right-wing clear politics average.
Most of the battleground states, except for Nevada and Michigan. So we'll see what happens.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.